normal logo.
Yeah, I thought that's a lot.
Now I have to jump in at this point because we've just gone live, I've been told. So obviously, you can just see we're already warming up here. And we're at our panel. Yes. We're at our panel. And we're going to be talking about sustainable food for the future. Obviously, this is exactly the topic we're going to sort out within the next half an hour. We're going to fight world hunger. So no pressure on us. However, let's find out who we have on our stage. And I'd like to start with you, Meng. Maybe you can tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Meng, and I grew up in the city in China. It's called Chengdu. So the city has 16 million population. So, small city, just twice as many people as in Austria. And I moved to United States in 2011 for my PhD degree in food science. And I graduated with a PhD in food science from University of Maryland in 2014. And then I worked in the US Food and Drug Administration in the analytical chemistry department for a little bit under 2 years. And then I joined a company in San Francisco called Just. I joined this company in 2016 as a food scientist, and now I'm leading the food science team at Just. So pretty much I'm doing the technical part of the product development and Eat Just. And we are a company founded around 2011, and one of our first product is this Just Mayo. So it's a mayonnaise, but it's completely plant-based and that doesn't have any eggs. So no issue with egg allergy, also very good sustainability. And so Eat Just, we have raised more than 220 million as of 2016. And in the following 4 years, we've raised an undisclosed amount. And so in 2013, we were named as 3 companies for the future of the food by Bill Gates. And our early stage investors, including Salesforce Mark Benioff, and also Asian's richest businessman Li Kai-sheng. And right now, our company's flagship products are Just Egg. So this one is like a plant-based liquid egg format. So you can kind of just open it and shake it, open it, and then scramble it into any egg dish, just like what you would do with a liquid egg. And we just launched a new product. I'm sorry, this looked like a TV commercial.
It's actually quite a long introduction,
but I was told that people like to
I'll give you one more product, and then we'll have to go to the next one.
Okay, so we have this
Sure.
Just
I want
Egg.
to buy it.
We just launched this Just Egg. So it's a plant-based egg, and it comes with those kind of frozen pockets. So you pop it into the toaster oven, and it comes ready as egg patty. You can put it in your sandwich. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philipp.
All right, so keeping the style of the TV commercial, just by coincidence, I have a little package of our product here on the side as well. So I'm Philipp, and I'm one of the co-founders of Rebel Meat. And what we do is we have created burger patties that only need 50% of meat to give you the full meat experience. And why do we do that? Because we're on a mission to make meat more sustainable, and we think more sustainable means less and better. So we know that many people out there try to eat less meat because obviously people know that a lot of meat consumption is responsible for rainforest destruction, climate change, a lot of also animal related problems, etc. But putting that into practice is actually quite hard, and that's why the rate of vegans and vegetarians are not really increasing, and the amount of meat in the Western world is pretty much stagnant, and in the developing world it's actually growing quite fast. So we said, okay, let's have a perfect combination here of you can still enjoy your meat, but it's less and it gives you the full experience, and it's much better because it's organic. It's not with imported soy. It's without any artificial flavors or anything like this. We're based in Vienna, and we actually were on the show 2 Minutes 2 Million last week, and since then we're also available in the supermarkets. So if you haven't tried us, check us out. And with that, I'm gonna end my TV commercial.
Thank you very much. That was also an amazing pitch. It was a good introduction. No pressure on you, Kathi, but go for it.
Yeah, going last. So I'm Katharina. I'm founder of Livin Farms, which you see here, but I heard that it's kind of the other way around. Sorry for that. By chance, I actually also have a product here. Kind of an older version of it. In some cases, we called it microfoods. Now, probably you see this the other way around as well. But in any case, we grow mealworms. So we grow insects as an alternative protein source, as well as fertilizer. And we focus on the technological aspect of it. So we are working on technology to grow these alternative proteins in the most efficient way, both from a sustainability perspective and a circular economy perspective. So insects as compared to plant-based protein or other livestock protein have a complete amino acid profile. They have a very good fatty acid profile. So they're very high quality and very well digestible by both humans and animals. And they can eat food waste. So bakery waste, that's the key source that we're working with right now. They're really good in eating that up as compared to, pigs or poultry or cattle. And they can turn it really efficiently with very minimal resources and minimal space into high quality products. So that's proteins, oils, fats, and fertilizer. So the poop you can, of course, also use.
Now here goes my challenge. Obviously, I have a bit of a challenge on this panel because I totally love all three products. I love the idea, and I'm all for it. However, if I'm the host now, I'll have to kind of take my own bias out. So here goes. That was kind of my excuse. So I'll try it this way. Now, obviously, listening to all of you, it seems like a no-brainer that there should be mass market adoption because all three are a lot better than the current things. However, why is there no mass market adoption yet? Or is there?
Yes, I can start. I can start because I think our product, as compared to the other two projects here, is not only B2C. So we're doing B2B business. Not. I don't mean it in terms of that you wouldn't do B2B business as such. I just meant it's not necessarily consumer facing only as the end product. So we sell. We actually don't sell directly to the consumer, but it's an ingredient for both food and feed. So the challenge that we're looking at as one of the segments of this larger challenge of sustainability in the food market, I think, is that people are continuing to eat meat to some extent. So we see that by 2030, we'll have a doubling of the demand in animal proteins worldwide. That is that countries on the verge of industrialization or that are going or ramping up industrialization right now, they are eating more meat because they become wealthier. And even in Europe, we see an increase of 60% of demand in animal protein by 2030. So the demand in animal proteins is not stopping anytime too soon. And that is also because animals have an easier way digesting animal proteins as compared to plant-based proteins. So for example, fish is being fed with fish meal, which is totally unsustainable because it's sourced from ocean fish. But that's what makes fish grow the fastest and the best because it can digest it perfectly fine. But with our solution, we can feed fish equally well or even better, but much more sustainably without using fish from the ocean and with actually using food waste that is already available and underutilized.
Why is the old approach broken? Why is had meat and everything sufficient? Why is this becoming a challenge? Just kind of for people who are new to this topic.
So for us, it's
Whoever wants
because,
to jump in.
sorry, just quickly. So on the feed section, it is because the old system was built on sort of a premise of abundant resources, abundant fish in the ocean, for example, and that's not working anymore.
And obviously more population coming along as well, and with that the challenge of feeding more and more people who have more and more access, that becomes quite a challenge. So we can kind of agree on that. This is not just a question of the distant future. This is actually right. Now my approach is, obviously, if we look at adoption curves of innovation, I'd be curious. Obviously, we have a lot of business students listening, and so they all know what the famous Ford T model is. You know, the first car that made it to mass adoption. How far are we to the T model? Do we already have a T model in let's say alternative meats and proteins, whatnot? Or are we still far away?
So I think I can speak of that. I think to answer your first question, Just our company has been around for 8-9 years. At this point, I would say we have successfully reached mass production. As of today, we've sold 14 million equivalent of eggs, and we have purchased our own protein production facility for plant-based protein. The protein that we identified by ourselves, Meng protein, and also we have. I think one thing that I saw is changing is how traditional industry is adapting to this new change we are trying to make. And one thing really helped Just grow is that we tapped into the existing infrastructure of the traditional industry. So we are creating a new category of product, and there's definitely innovation in there. But we are not gonna rebuild the entire food system by ourselves, right? We are still relying on the ecosystem the traditional industry has already built. So we have already signed 3 big egg manufacturers. So those are chicken egg manufacturers as our business partners. One is Eurovo Group based in Italy, and PHW Group based in Germany, and Micro Foods based in United States. And those are all international egg manufacturers. And now they are opening up to a new idea saying, hey, we want to be partner with you. We want to make this vegan egg as well. So they used to think us as competitors. You know, they want to they see us taking away their profit, but now they see a new opening market that they also want to be part of it. And I think we are also very open for partnership. That's how we got to a point where we have achieved mass production and the most impact.
Thank you. I'd just like to jump in here quite quickly. 2 questions. Number one, if you're listening and have questions, you can post them on Slido. And we have the first Slido question, which I'd just like to jump in. And that's at Katharina. What are insects eating? That's kind of the question there. So what do they eat?
What do they eat?
Yes.
Yeah, so they can eat very low quality stuff. So right now in our production, they mainly eat bakery waste. So the bakery, the rolls and the bread that are left over in the shops, in the retailers at night, we dry that and crush it, and we mix it with some other secret ingredients, but mostly they eat that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, obviously, I'd like to also kind of take this discussion because obviously we're seeing there's a lot of revolution going on, a lot of change needing to happen in this. Sometimes listening into these lines, one would think like the future is vegan or vegan. Now, Philipp, obviously, I'd have to ask you this. What's your take on that?
So our take is that there are very good vegan options around, and have been actually for a couple of years now. There are some problems with some of the existing products, especially when it comes to artificial ingredients and so on. But I think what is even more important than product is probably customer acceptance. And it just turns out that for a quite big fraction of the population, meat is just culturally very deeply ingrained, and it's part of many traditions. It's everywhere readily and very cheap available, and whether that's good or not is just a fact, and it's not gonna go away anytime soon. And so there's different approaches to this, right? So there, on the one hand, you have the whole cell-based meat industry, where companies are trying to grow actual animal-based DNA in a bioreactor. You have the whole plant-based movement, where you try to mimic meat from plant-based materials. And we're kind of in the middle, right? We're saying, so we're reducing meat and making sure we're only using really the very best available. So that's, on the one hand, has a short-term impact rather than some of the long-term gains, and giving people that want to reduce now but not completely give up on it, or maybe not even on a single meal and give up on it, a chance to reduce right now. And in the long term, actually, and we believe that we can be the key enabler for the whole cell-based movement. Because imagine if you have a bioreactor where you grow cells, they will probably not come out in a form that is directly eatable for the end consumer. So most likely you will have to blend it with some kind of plant-based ingredients. And we probably think that we will be in a very good position to bring these kind of blended products to market. So the question is, will the world be vegan? I doubt it personally, but will the meat industry look very, very different from now? Very likely, yes. So I think that the big, huge, like scaled production for affordable, or let's say cheap meat, will probably come from a bioreactor, and then you will probably have kind of artisan, very, very high level premium meat that's still gonna come from traditional livestock. That's gonna be hopefully very, very different from what the meat or livestock supply chain looks today, which is awful.
I just kind of see, looking at you, Meng, and also you, Kathy, that both of you seem to be nodding. Is it kind of an approach you also see?
Yes, so we also have a cellular agriculture team where we make cultured meat. I definitely do agree with Philipp, and so the problem with livestock meat, I think people just don't realize there are so many problems there. So in the US, the sales of pig pork plunged because of the coronavirus. But people don't know is that all the pigs, from the moment they kind of mature, you only have a couple months window to sell them, actually, to harvest them into meat. After that, they are no longer good, and they don't have any place to move to. So if you don't sell those pigs, the new baby swing, they are growing, and you basically have everything backed up, and they don't know what to do. It's a livestock. So it's creating a huge problem in the supply chain, in the business. So I think that's where also why the traditional food sector is also looking for a change. It's why people are adapting.
I just want to jump in here. Slido question wants to know, do you see the coronavirus situation as a more limitation or an opportunity for sustainability-led startups? I mean, it's not quite on topic, but in a way it is. So I just wanted to feed it in. What's your take on that?
I don't think any of us can call this opportunity. It's a very devastating event that has happened, that has impacted all of our lives across the globe. So I'm very hesitant to say it's an opportunity by itself, but we did see a retail sales increase for our product. And it is people's habits are shifting. I think this was triggered by the event of coronavirus, but at the same time we were taking a big hit. Our food service sales are suffering quite a lot. I don't know how do you guys feel on this?
Yeah, Kathy, Philipp.
So I mean, yeah, I also don't think it's you can call it an opportunity as such, but I do think that it shows it. I think the crisis does bring about a certain grade of reflection of people in what is really important, what is essential, what should we really be focusing on, and I think that it did show an importance that food systems work on a local and global level. So I do think that there needs to be more focus in looking in production within a country, within a continent, and how self-reliant we can be in be it ingredients, be it resources. I think it shows a great importance of making sure that we use resources that we already have available in a meaningful way and make the most out of it in order to be secure in our systems locally.
Thank you, Philipp.
Yeah, I mean, I also wouldn't call the crisis itself an opportunity, but definitely now the recovery is definitely an opportunity to not go back to where we were before, but really go into a completely new direction. And that's, to be honest, a lot of what we're pitching now to gastronomers, also in the retail, etc. When people tell us we don't have time for a new product, we need to survive, and then we try to convince them that exactly this is the time to come up with a new product. Now, that's of course on the one hand a sales pitch that we do, but in a way we really mean it, because we can't go back to where we were. We really need to change the way we look at things and the way we operate. And I actually see this recovery as a big opportunity. I mean, there was a statistic: 50% of all employees, I don't know, was it Austria or Europe, are rethinking their jobs now after 2 months of home office. Can you imagine? 50%, that's a big number. And that really shows us that people are really starting to ask the right questions. And I think it's a great chance.
I'm interested. Now we have a couple of Slido questions kind of going on very much towards consumer habits. However, I'd like to have a look at the international approach here. And I'd like to see, do you see regional differences, the way habits are changing at different speeds? Are there regions which are more open for change, more advanced, and regions slower to change? Or is it too early to tell?
I think the data is surprising for me. I would imagine if without the data, I would imagine our product will sell better in California, where I am at right now, or in New York City, or in the bigger cities, people are more kind of trendy and adaptive. But it's not necessarily the case. Our best selling, so our product that's been selling the best across the national Whole Foods store is actually the one in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't even, it's not, the name is not even on top of my head. I can't remember the name of the city, but it's in the middle of nowhere in the United States.
So like Bible Belt country. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I guess we're making innovations. So I guess sometimes it's also good to look at the market with an unbiased view, without all how you are told, what you say on the social media. Those might not be representative anymore. The market is changing. Consumers are changing rapidly.
I think that's a super.
Yeah,
sorry.
I just wanted to follow up on that. I'm just curious. Do you think it's just out of convenience that people are adapting to your product more likely in the middle of nowhere because they have no, let's say, over access to other products?
I wouldn't say so, because right now I don't think we really have a competitor's product like plant-based egg. We're pretty much the only one for like scrambled egg or omelette application. I feel like it's more because of the internet is bringing a lot of new things to remote areas, and people are changing and they don't have access to, they used to not have access to those content or to be influenced by those content. But now because of YouTube, because of Instagram, because of the internet, so a lot of information actually reach everywhere in the world. So you don't know how the consumers are going to think. Their resources are changing.
Thank you. Sorry, Kathy, I was just very curious to follow up on that.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting point. There's a big architect, Remco Haas. He brought out a piece of like a book on the revival of the countryside, sort of like he was the last 30 years, I think. He was all about the cities and all about metropolitan areas, and now he's saying, well, the countryside is gonna celebrate a revival. We're not going to see this tomorrow. We're probably also not going to see this immediately next year, but we're going to see this trend in the coming years that people use spaces differently, and they have, as Meng mentioned, they have access to the same internet. Usually, they have access to the same kinds of information, even if people live in the countryside. And the countryside is not being used so much for agriculture anymore. We can make agriculture much more efficient, use less space, and use the countryside actually for different things. And that changes consumer habits and the landscape of what we do with our space, our resources, and how we spend money as well, I think.
Thank you. Now, time is flying, but I still also want to hear your opinion, Philipp, on that.
Yeah, I think we don't have so much experience on our product on international markets, and we see that there are some first projects going on in other countries. I just feel like here as Europeans, we actually must be very cautious to not fall back into this now nationalist trap of a lot of different regulations. Because I think that's one of the main advantages in the food innovation space that, for example, the US still has over Europe. You have a much more common regulatory landscape. And I mean, in Asia, the regulatory landscape is just much more liberal. So that's a different approach. But I think in Europe, we have to make sure, we're not now falling into this nationalistic trap, and rather have a real strong European Union and make sure innovation can really spread fast. And I think that will be very helpful now from the internationalization perspective.
Thank you for that. Now, it's kind of a panel and a topic. I think we're just getting warmed up because it's so complex and there's so many different aspects to it. However, we're already more or less at the end, and for me, the takeaways, I think it's an incredible time where a lot of change is happening. It's been happening before. And I think what I find, we're just at the beginning of changing the way people actually eat and the way people understand how food can happen. And I think one of the main challenges, if I understand it correctly, is also a lot of habits, cultural habits that are holding us back. People just saying, hey, we've always done that, so it has to be good. But then again, due to the way we're changing and minds and ideas are traveling through time, due to the internet, these are also times where people reflect on habits that have been formed and are open and willing to reform them. On the one hand, because of healthcare, on the other hand, out of economic necessities. What I find really interesting, obviously, is we're not talking about something that's going to happen in the distant future, but we're talking about something that's currently happening. And a lot of people are listening in right now, understanding where areas where a lot can still be shaped and a lot can still be changed. And I think this is a huge, super exciting industry. I'm very curious to be looking out for all three of you to see what's going to happen, to see the way it's going to change. And I have to admit, it's a field which has been so enjoyable ever since I personally saw the first products in 2015 in the US. I'm super intrigued. And yeah, thank you very much for joining in. And all of you out there, just give it a shot. And also question your own habits on this, and question why certain things are necessary or not. In that sense, thank you very much for joining in. Stay safe, and now it's time for a short networking. And don't forget, you can have a look around in the exhibition areas, meet and mingle as you would at an offline conference, because digital is better than offline or something. In that sense, thank you very much for joining. Stay safe, and don't miss the next panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.